can you record?
Okay, recording started. I don't believe that we have a quorum, so unfortunately, we don't have any action items. The first item on our agenda are the meeting summary from 6:29. We can't approve it because we don't have a quorum, but does anyone have any alterations to those notes? All right, not seeing any, we'll just move ahead and we can add that as an agenda item for the next meeting for approval. All right, moving on the agenda. The enforcement report, Jack, another one. If I said that right, I hope I have.
That's me. How are you?
All right, Jack, go for it.
Okay, so the enforcement report is relevant to the period of July 1st, 2022 through November 16th, 2022, which was yesterday. And during that time frame, the enforcement unit received 137 new cases to investigate involving real estate salespersons and real estate brokers. During the same time frame, the enforcement unit completed 298 investigations. 270 of those investigations were closed, and 28 of those cases were referred to the Office of General Counsel for review by attorneys. So that's the enforcement report for that specific time frame.
So Jack, to the degree that the department coordinates with DHR, what are you hearing about testing going on in the field and any kind of results there?
I don't have any specific information about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions for Jack? All right, thank you, Jack. All right, Emily, the processing report.
Good afternoon. Included in the materials you were provided is a report of the number of current real estate licensees for November of 2021 and November of 2022. The reports group licensees into broker and branch office licenses and salesperson licenses. The totals are listed by county. The numbers between the years are fairly consistent. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Emily? Seeing none, thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
The education report, Allison.
Good afternoon. Recent legislation has amended the qualifying education for both salespersons and brokers. David Mossberg will be presenting more specific information about those changes. Effective September 21st, 2022, as part of the 22.5 hours of continuing education required to renew, both real estate salespersons and brokers will be required to complete at least 2 hours of instruction pertaining to implicit bias awareness and at least 2 hours of cultural competency training. The Department of State currently has approximately 50 approved cultural competency continuing education courses and approximately 60 approved implicit bias continuing education courses. Are there any questions?
Any questions? All right, hearing none, thank you, Allison. And the examination report, please, Shannon.
Hello. From January to September 2022, the real estate salesperson exam was administered to 21,021 individuals with a pass rate of 49%. In that same time frame, the real estate broker exam was administered to 1,043 individuals with a pass rate of 54%. Thank you.
And how do those pass rates compare?
Pretty steady.
Pretty steady.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, please, for Shannon? All right, seeing none, thank you. All right, the next agenda item, new business, the regulatory update, Dave Mossberg.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, okay. At our last board meeting back on June 29th, we had presented to the board Regulatory updates, as Allison referenced, with respect to fair housing education updates. Since that meeting where the board voted to authorize the Department of State to take any and all action necessary to both propose the rule in the state register as noted as proposed, as well as hold the statutorily required public hearing, which we held, I believe it was September 21st. We are bringing just an update back to the board that we have not received public comments during the regular notice period, nor did anybody appear at the public hearing that was required by statute. Based upon the last vote on June 29th, where the board voted expressly to allow the department to move forward with adoption, provided there were no substantive changes or public comments that needed to be for the board. That is what we intend to do. However, we did want to bring to the board's attention a non-substantive change relating to effectively the supplemental courses that would fill in some educational requirements that may have been missed depending on what courses licensees or applicants had already taken. So rather than require applicants to take a full course because they were missing one course or, effectively just a few hours, we created supplemental courses. So in the board packet, beginning at the bottom of page 4, specifically section 176.26, A1 and A3, as well as I believe it's B1 and B2, the original version of the rule that was voted on by the board ostensibly said that the applicant had to take a 2-hour approved education course devoted to fair housing and anti-bias training. However, the department, after the rule was published, began to recognize that not every fair housing course will include anti-bias training, and not every anti-bias training is going to necessarily include components of fair housing. So therefore, to allow a greater opportunity for licensees, we made a very minor change in each of those sections to say that the courses have to be devoted to fair housing and or anti-bias training. So if the course is exclusive to fair housing, that's fine. If the course is exclusive to anti-bias training, that's fine. If the course happens to be a combination where both topics are covered, that will also be fine as well. And that would satisfy the requirements for any supplemental education that may have been missed. So as compared to the rule that was voted by the board on June 29th, that is the only non-substantive change that the department recommended. Since there's no quorum, there's no need to vote because the June 29th meeting, the board voted expressly to allow the department to move forward with adoption, provided there were no substantive changes or anything that developed from the public comment. So we anticipate we'll be able to move ahead, file the notice of adoption hopefully soon, so that it'll be published in the state register with adequate time for licensees, applicants, schools, school providers, instructors to be aware of the new requirements and to be able to start teaching the courses as soon as possible. So that's the only change that we made and the only update that we thought was important to present to the board with respect to the fair housing rule. I don't know if there are any questions.
Any questions for Dave? Thank you for all the great work, Dave. Appreciate it.
Sure. There is one other regulatory update that we wanted to make mention. As some board members may be aware, at the end of the 2021, a bill was passed by the legislature upon a declaration from the legislature that there appear to be intense and repeated solicitations occurring in Kings County, Brooklyn, New York. As part of the law that was signed, the Secretary of State was required to conduct one or more hearings and conducted an investigation into solicitations with respect to Brooklyn. Pursuant to that statute and law, the department did in fact hold 2 public hearings. One was virtual, and then one was in person at Brooklyn Borough Hall. In accordance with the statute, the department was required to effectively issue a report detailing what the findings were if the department did not determine that a rule establishing a cease and desist zone in Brooklyn was appropriate, or go ahead and move forward with the cease and desist zone in Brooklyn. In furtherance of that statute, the department did file a notice of proposed rulemaking to, in fact, establish a cease and desist zone in Brooklyn. It is not for all of Brooklyn. It is for a small part of the area commonly referred to as Community Board 17. The entire rulemaking explanation, the findings of the public hearings, that will be published in the November 23rd edition of the State Register, which is publicly available on the department's website. Currently posted on the department's website on the main Divisional Licensing Services webpage is the draft text of the proposal, which defines the boundary, but it also cleaned up the existing rule to remove references to zones which have since expired and are no longer in effect. So the regulation was cleaned up to get rid of the old rules, and then consistent or as required by the new statute, we are proposing a new zone for a part, not all, of Community Board 17. So I don't know if there's any questions about that, but the information is posted on our website, and more information will be posted on November 23rd.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave? All right, not hearing any, we'll move on to Heidi. Do we have a proposed date?
Not yet. I've got to work out some scheduling conflicts with the US staff, and then I'll provide those dates to board members.
So we'll get a range of dates again?
Hmm?
So we'll get a number of dates to possibly get?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So Heidi reports that there will be a selection of dates forthcoming based upon DOS availability for our next meeting. So is there any other business for this particular portion of the meeting? Seeing that there is none, this meeting is adjourned, and I'll turn it over to Dave for the public hearing session.
Thank you. So in accordance with New York Real Property Law, Section 442I, Paragraph 6, in addition to the regularly scheduled meetings of the Real Estate Board, the department is required to hold at least one public hearing each year in New York City, Buffalo, and Albany. The purpose of the hearing shall be to solicit from members of the public suggestions, comments, and observations about real estate practice within the state of New York. As we are currently conducting this meeting both in Albany and in New York City, I'll ask if there are any members of the public in Albany that would like to provide comments, suggestions, or observations about real estate. Are there any public members in Albany?
Dave are not.
Okay. And I'll move now to New York City. Are there any public members in New York City that would like to make suggestions, comments, or observations about real estate practice in New York?
No, not in New York.
All right, thank you. There being no members of the public in either Albany or New York that wish to provide public comment, suggestions, or observations about real estate practice in New York, this concludes the special public hearings pursuant to New York Real Property Law, Section 442I, Paragraph 6. Thank you.
All right, there being no further business, thank you all and have wonderful Thanksgiving and great holidays.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you, everyone.
All this.